Okay, this is a makeshift hard court surface. Okay, guys, don't laugh. This yellow would be the top layer, let's say. And that's the sanding. They'll put a certain kind of sanding, or what you would call silica, in this paint layer, the very top layer. And that's all everybody seems to be concerned about most of the time, even the tournament. I have to think the tournament really does know it's more than that. I know because I talked directly to DecoTurf years ago about this, many times, many emails and phone calls. And so the tournament must know this, even though they don't talk about it. But they always talk about that top layer. Now, DecoTurf did tell me the top layer is probably is the most important. That's the most point of contact. All contact has to get to that top layer. It has to be on the top layer. But this thin layer underneath, and there could be many of these paint layers underneath, would have different sanding in it. Okay, and then on this thicker thing under here, I would say would be like the rubber content. That's where they have rubber granules in the paint layer, and that goes underneath all the sanding stuff, and that gives it a little bit of the cushion for the players. Not nearly the cushion of Plexi Cushion. Plexi Cushion in Australia is a lot more rubber granules, a lot more cushion, but DecoTurf has some cushion. And then, of course, this pink bottom here, that will be our asphalt. Okay, so that's kind of how it works. But the amount of layers, the outer courts have a little less. The main show courts and the center courts can have up to more than 10 layers of paint. I'm not kidding you. It's a very detailed. Now, most hard courts, you go around anywhere, there's only a few layers, maybe 3 or 4, layers, whatever. But this is made for professionals. This is high end, looking for ultimate consistency and playability. And honestly, I think fairness. The tournament wants fairness. The manufacturers are following what the tournament tells them. And it's about giving everybody a chance to exhibit their talents and their skills and their styles. Okay? So, maybe I'm too naive, but I really do believe that. So, when I talk about this being a variable surface, what I mean is, a lot of times you'll hear me say the ball's spinning. If you get a big spin, okay? If you more RPMs, rotation per minute, revolution per minute, but how many is the ball spinning? The ball, it's an aerodynamic, it's aerodynamics, but it will force the ball up and it will come down with more force onto the ground, and it will be a sharp decline. It's a vector thing, it's physics, and whatever you want to call it. And it comes down with a sharp force. If you hit it flat with less spin and through the air this way, it's more horizontal vector, and it has not nearly the force of a downward spinning. It comes in like this, and more of the force is heading out this way. The vectors are much more this way than this way. Okay? What does this all mean? Because you'll hear me say the ball's digging into the bottom layers that have a heavier sanding. Obviously, it's a hard court, okay? So we're standing here. This is a hardwood floor here, okay? I mean, we're not gonna bust through this hardwood floor. I'm gonna throw this down here, okay? There's stuff underneath this hardwood floor, but we're not getting under that. It's a hardwood floor. Same with the hard court. I'm well aware that we're not going beneath that top paint layer in a way. But if for people that want to think of it more realistically maybe, or try to wrap their mind around it, there's different sanding. So let's say there's like okay, I have to explain one other thing. There are 3 different types of silica, 3 different types of sand. Maybe more now, but what I learned a few years ago was angular, which is sharp and angled, and then subangular, and then rounded, which is soft and rounded. And it can be different sizes. So different sizes of this stuff, okay? And different sharpness, okay? So the real angular stuff and the bigger pieces are what they would use at Indian Wells and put that all throughout the paint, because that's in the desert, the ball flies there, and they want that to really check up. And they use a pen ball whose felt is very heavy and does not rip off. So that's why you see that ball so fluffed up, because it's getting torn up by the heavy sanding and then an angular sanding, and then it won't come off either. The felt on the Wilson will come off more. So that's why you see a huge fluffy ball in Indian Wells, and that helps for more than one reason. That also helps because when it's fluffier, it will help slow it down through the thinner air in the desert. It's not a thinner air, but the dryness there and all that, and the heat, more than anything, also the sun and the heat. So that the ball will be pumped up in the air compression because of the heat, but it will be more fuzzy from all the ripping. So it has a dual effect. Anyway, back to this. So what you're going to get, if you have a heavy spin coming down, and let's say down on these paint layers, we have some subangular and some angular sanding in bigger pieces. And on the top layer, it's more rounded and soft, okay? So if you're coming in flat and you're just skimming that part, you're not getting a lot of, you're getting much more of the softer stuff, and it will flatten and go right through that. Especially with this kind of ball, but even a pen, but even more so the Wilson because of the felt. But the Wilson's a heavier felt this year, as I keep saying, and last year, but still not like pen. Now, you coming down with this force, of course it's not busting through the paint and the layers, but if you want to think of it more realistically, just think of different sandings, and hard sanding, soft sanding, bigger pieces, smaller pieces, all throughout a layer. We'll just say, let me grab another one. This is your hard court. Boom, done. Okay, this looks more like the plexi cushion, but whatever. The color of the plexi in Australia. But anyway, we're coming down through, and you're just hitting the surface, okay? But it's the amount of force coming down that will keep the ball at point of contact longer than if it were flat. And the longer time at the point of contact, even if it's spinning and coming back up and staying down, you're going to get more of the sanding. And if there's more rougher sanding in there somewhere, it will grab that more. It works like that. Now, this is not the exact physics or the equations. I am not going to do that. I don't need to do that. Maybe one day we'll do it, but I'm not going to do it right now. But that's how it works. If you come through flat, it just won't pick up as much of that stuff. It's sort of basically the idea. Anyway, I obviously know that it's, not busting through the top layer into the bottom layers or anything like that. So you can think of it like a mixture of sanding. And what might have happened last year, I'm not sure exactly because I wasn't even told about this by anybody. So I don't think it was even much, but the tournament director came out at one point and said they had sanded the top a little more. And I think they did because it was a triple whammy what happened. You had the ball a little slower, which they won't want to talk about that. I don't think they're going to talk about that, and that's a whole nother video. There's the humid weather that has a slowing effect, and that's also another video. And it's not just about the wetness on the felt, it's also about the spinning with the wetter felt, plus barometric pressure again, another thing, okay? And then you had a little more sanding on the top layer. Now, again, I don't think that would have been a huge deal, but when you add it all together, it was. But there were still times last year I saw that ball slipping through pretty quick. So I don't think it was as slow as everybody was saying, no matter what the CPI was saying, which I have another video on why that's not exactly accurate. But it all ended up being slow. This year, I think I've seen a faster top layer. Last year they might have even put some of the harder sanding in that top layer. Not just added sand, but maybe some of the angular or subangular stuff. Or maybe some bigger pieces. They just made it a little, whatever they did, it maybe made it a little rougher up there. But anyway, I think they've backed off that. I've seen signs all week. I was actually told by my guy, my source for this, that this was going to happen. I was told like over a month ago this was going to happen. It looked that way. A lot of aces, a lot of balls getting through the court, but still variable. You get it spinning. I have tons of videos on Twitter. You guys go to my Twitter, tons of stuff from Qualies showing the different spins, the different ways to play it. It's going to be more variable this year, a little quicker on top, but variable.